Good afternoon and welcome to the Overview and Scrutiny Management Committee. We've got apologies from Councillor Marchington today, and Councillor Uppal will be just a little bit late. Minutes of previous meeting. Everybody got the minutes of the previous meeting in front of them. On page 3, we're still awaiting items 2 and 4 from the actions there. Item 3, where we asked about the information on the website, that seems to have been updated. And page 5, we said that a small subgroup will be drawn of corporate and economy and neighbourhood scrutiny panel to look at place-based working, and that's in the process of terms of reference being drafted for that. Are there any other points on the minutes to raise? Do we agree they're a true record of the discussion? Yes, thank you. Does any councillor have any interests they wish to declare? No? Do you want... And all items are in public. We don't have any deputations or petitions today, and with any public questions? No. Yeah. So do we want to just say who we are before we move on to item 7? So, Councillor Cooper, do you...
I'm Councillor Andrew Cooper.
I'm Councillor Habib Zaman.
Penny Bunker from the governance team.
Hello, I'm Andy Simcox. I'm Service Director for Strategy and Innovation.
I'm Claire Bagshaw. I'm Head of Service for Transformation and Culture Change.
Hi, I'm Rachel Spencer-Henschel, Strategic Director for Corporate Strategy, Commissioning and Public Health.
And I'm Councillor Smage, chairing the meeting. So, item 7 then, update on the Corporate Transformation Programme. And is it yourself that's going to introduce this item? Thank you.
It is, yes. So, good afternoon. I'll give a brief introduction and then obviously open to any questions that you want to ask. And that's why the three of us are here today. So this is an update report to give progress on activities that the transformation team have been involved in since the last report came to you in March. What we're looking for, I guess, is to brief you, to receive any questions, and also to engage in any of the points that you wish to have further involvement in, to understand where Scrutiny may wish to add, where we can benefit from that in the future. So it's a consultative and engagement thing as well. So there we go. Okay, so in March, what I set out in the previous report was an adjustment in approach. We'd been through a year's worth of transformation activity that was heavily focused on savings and that had a lot of structured project and programme management activity, and that was the focus of the skills within the transformation team at that time. So a significant amount of money, more than £50 million, had been saved by the organisation in 2017-18. What we recognised was that to tackle some of the thorniest problems that remained, particularly in relation to where you look at the descriptions of the shared outcomes, that they would require more than just a focus on money. They would require organisation, cross services, cross partnership contribution and input to tackling those sorts of challenges. So we were looking to move beyond the standard project and programme management skills that we had within the corporate service at that time to that kind of system focus. We also engaged with exec team and cabinet members in how to set the priorities for the contributions of the transformation team, the corporate transformation team, and they're reminded again within here. So looking at strategic planning activities that arise from the corporate plan, some of those things that are cross-cutting, for example, around organisation design and place-based working, any high priority budget areas that remained, and some of those areas where they may be considered to be high risks, continuing within services where they may need some independent input from the corporate centre into achieving the outcomes that they were looking for from those service activities. So that's background to prioritisation. Since March, we have begun to adjust the skills within the team. We have added more people with transformation skills, more change management type of activities. I'm pleased to say that we've recently appointed Claire, who's obviously here today, Claire is from a background in public health, most recently within the council, and is adept at working within system change activities. So when I moved into my current role, I was keen to ensure that we replaced with somebody who'd got those sorts of skills. So that's why we're happy that we've got Claire. And we have been through a level of development within the team to look more organisation design and change skills, but that's still a work in progress, I would say. So what the report covers, with that, I won't go into the detail, I guess you'll have questions in relation to them, is what we've done or where we're at in relation to the corporate centre redesign, development of place-based working, for which I think you had an update on the 9th of September in the management committee that will have gone into that in a greater depth. Activity around strengthening enabling services, which looks particularly at the corporate kind of services, and then a brief update on high needs placements and waste activity, plus a statement that where we had a strong contribution into change activities within children's and also within adults, that has become more business as usual now. We kind of have a watching brief to provide independent input to that if it's asked for or required. And I suppose my other question, or one of my questions back to you would be, clearly what you have here is a high-level description of where there has been a contribution from the transformation team. You will probably be more interested in dealing with some of those things within individual committee or individual panel discussions. So a greater depth will, I'm sure, emerge from challenge within there. The last thing to say is that the appendix is shared to show a piece of work that we've done within the transformation team, Appendix A, which is about being clear within the organisation what the purpose of the team is, the types of areas where we can get involved, what the offer to the rest of the organisation is in a simple format. And that's proven to be useful in understanding where we can be most effective. So that's all I was going to say. But obviously open to any questions and we will collectively respond.
Yeah. I'd like to look at the waste element of the plan here. One question I have is about what are we doing really to demonstrate that we are looking at what other authorities are doing. Because whenever I get around a bit in terms of going around other places, and I see all these, I see a lot of places which seem to be doing a lot more than what we are in terms of recycling. And I know that's all about the contract. And I know that's historically where we're at. We got a very cheap contract which was good for its time, but we are 20 odd years on from that now. So I'd like to see how we're actively showing that we are learning from others, because sometimes councils are not that good at it. Everybody talks about best practice, but there's also that not invented here attitude which often exists in councils. So I'd really like to see us written down how we've done that, how we've looked at it, how we've examined it, how we've looked at the best in practice. And I'd recommend going to Stroud District Council. Stroud District Council are one of the leading councils in the country on waste and waste management. They're streets ahead of us, obviously a different sort of council, but there we are. Waste contract 2022-23. The danger is that we wait till 2022-23 before we actually do things. So I'd be interested to know what we can do between now and then. We're talking 3-4 years off. Is everything going to be not as good as it could be up until then? Well, when we have a better contract, but what is it we can do? So, for instance, some areas are doing anaerobic digestion and looking at that in terms of food waste. Are we actively seeking anaerobic digestion as one of the solutions that we that might help us in future? So I'd be interested in what you say about that. Fly tipping. Fly tipping is something I've brought up on a number of occasions. A few of us get involved with that and are often going around areas not for fun, but clearing them up and working with local residents on that. Sometimes it's rubble, sometimes it's sinks, all those things that we don't accept at our waste sites. Now, when I brought this up as an issue in the past in terms of that exact point, it's always been looked at in terms of cost. and that's been, well, actually, Councillor Cooper, it is worth, yes, we save more money than it would cost to collect the rubbish. So it's almost financially worth us accepting fly tipping of the sort of things we do not accept at our sites. And that's pretty much how it's been expressed to me. And so, obviously, from somebody who's looking around the community, you think, actually, maybe we ought to have a policy shift and promote that to try and get a culture shift, which might take a few years down the line. But we need to be actually finding it easier for people to deal with rubble and waste in those ways. So, sorry to sort of go on about that a fair bit. And one last point. I know the peer challenge report is not public yet. But what are we doing to learn from some of the things that are in there in terms of culture change within the service? What are the key learnings that we're looking at without of course betraying any confidences?
I'll start. Colleagues may have more. Thank you for the points. Starting with the waste and the fly tipping ones, I think it's really helpful. Part of our role is clearly to work alongside colleagues in right across the organisation, so to provide that type of independent support and challenge as well, and to work with them on what is good practice elsewhere. So we'll definitely take the Stroud example and the other points that you've mentioned into there. I think it's personally particularly important that before anything is brought forward for action, and needs to be brought forward for action in a short space of time, given the timescales as you described, that it is stacked up by what good practices elsewhere and what a solid business case is. So we will be encouraging that within that work and that type of check and challenge within there. I don't know if you want to add.
I think from my perspective, the reason for moving to this sort of approach gives us a bit more of a, I suppose I'll use the term corporate grip on decisions that are made across the organisation, and gives us a bit of an ability to say to people, well, why do you do that then? And sometimes that's about bringing people out from perhaps what's been a way of working that's been the way of working for a long period of time into a new way of working. So trying to put a bit of challenge into the system. Sometimes that's difficult because people who have got really strong technical expertise within an area will probably have a very technical reason why we do it one way versus another. But part of that bringing in external perspectives and different ways of looking at things gives us the opportunity to say, well, hang on a minute, this area, this organisation, because it's not just about other councils, it's about other, learning from other industries in terms of how we could do this differently potentially. And I think that links quite nicely to the culture change point that you made, because part of the peer challenge culture change feedback that was received, albeit informally at the moment, is if we're saying we're working towards outcomes and we're focusing on people, place and partners, how are we demonstrating that we're actively doing those things? And there'll be a programme of organisation development and culture change for staff that will move us into a position where we aren't focusing on, okay, well, what does the budget line A say? It would be more about how do we contribute collectively to an outcome and how are we working together to do that. So if anything, it reinforces for me why this shift from programme and project management, which could have just facilitated an old way of working, into this approach actually gives us the opportunity to ask those kind of, well, hang on a minute, why do you do it like that? And actually sometimes that challenge can be help people move away from their technical expertise into a, oh, I hadn't really thought about it like that.
Can I ask, while we're talking about waste, can I ask about you've got a proposed new approach to reporting and clearing fly tipping. I think if you asked anybody who regularly suffers from fly tipping in their area, they would ask, well, where's the enforcement? So reporting and clearing up, yeah, but if you haven't got enforcement in there as well, then you really are just going around in a circle. You're just reporting and clearing up without actually tackling some of the issues surrounding the actual fly tipping that is happening. So is that being taken into consideration as well? Because this report would just seem that we're going to just accept fly tipping and we're just going to clean it up when
I'm sure the answer will be yes. We have some form of enforcement, but I guess the issue is how successful is it? How do we resource it? How do we resource enforcement? And how does that compare with our partners, our other councils within our cohort? So we can have a really clear understanding if we're not currently doing as much as we could be doing, because it's easy to turn around and say, well, yeah, we've got so and so, they do the enforcement, and we've had some success, but how does that compare?
Bradford Council just recently has actually run an information campaign, I think, on fly tipping, and they've used their illuminated signs that they have in certain areas to say, you will be fined, whatever it is, for fly tipping, you'll be fined, whatever it is, for littering. And then it's there in front of people. But you never see anything these days from Kirklees about, yeah.
We don't want to just be talking about fly tipping, but it seems to be a very hot topic across Kirklees. Now, particularly in our area in Batley, we seem to be having like hotspots where people feel very comfortable going and dumping. I mean, almost on a weekly basis, I'm reporting that, and residents are just getting fed up of reporting, and they kind of feel that some of it is like builders that are just coming and dumping rubble. They're reporting it, but then it takes such a long time to clear the area. Now, it's okay kind of having these policies and enforcement in place, but if we're not proactively going out and showing communities that we actually care and we're trying to enforce our policies, then they're not really worth the paper that they're written on. And communities feel quite disheartened, and this, particularly when they're coming face to face with us, they have a lot to say about the council. We're unable to justify why the officers just sort of go around, clear up, and then we're going round and round in circles, and we're not tackling the real issue. So what are we going to do about it? It's okay having these priorities, but are we going to have the resources to actually have the impact that we're looking for?
Just add to that. I mean, I fully accept those points. That there is people who report again and again rubbish, and different people report again and again fly-tipped rubbish. One thing we did in the Newsham ward, which we think was helpful, is we actually put stickers on fridges and sofas and various things saying that we, as the local councillors, had reported it. And one of the reasons we did that was so people didn't report it again and again. Also, so other people didn't photograph it and say we weren't doing anything, because we were, but it was just taking so long to clear that people thought we weren't doing anything about it. But if you think about that, if we have stickers and things that are available to say that people know that it's actually being dumped, then just think of the impact in terms of the management of that, in terms of people phoning in, people checking to see whether it's the same one, all that sort of business. So we probably save the council a fair old bit of money by doing that at our own expense. But we could do it as an organisation. We could do it as Kirklees and have that as a facility for all councillors and community representatives to use.
You could also make cameras regularly available for the hotspots. So I think what we're saying is it's great that you've got a digital end-to-end fly tipping reporting solution, but it's going to come under greater strain if you don't sort out the fly tipping and do the enforcement. I think that's basically, and we'd like to see some action on that. But I want to come on to other things as well. So have you got a point on this in particular, Rachel?
I suppose it was just, again, it's very useful to get the feedback, and certainly I agree in terms of there's also potentially the prevention angle in terms of trying to understand why it's happening in the first place so that we can stop it, which I would say. But one of the difficulties about writing this report was how much we bring to this as part of the transformation report and how much would go into economy and infrastructure panel around the broader approach to waste. So you're probably seeing some bits that we've highlighted as areas we've been involved in, but partly I think the end-to-end is something that I think has frustrated a lot of people, although I do take your point about we need to do the enforcement as well. I think actually the point above it about the workshop and trying to break down some of those silos that sit within the service is a bit about how we can transform the culture to acknowledge that the current system as it is isn't working and we need to do something differently. But again, it's always going to be the balance with transformation about how much we know about the subject specific and how much it's just the bits we've been involved in.
We've got waste strategy on the Economy and Neighbourhoods panel's work plan. And I would certainly see the waste strategy going there on a regular basis at particular times so that they are seeing the overall strategy and how you're changing it and go into far more detail than we can at Management Committee to get it right. Because obviously if you are contract ends in 22-23, you're going to have it spec'd out what you're actually wanting in the new contract well before then, aren't you? I mean, you know. So I'd certainly see it going to Economy and Neighbourhoods on a regular basis and not just a little bit about what we're doing now, actually discussing the strategy in detail with the scrutiny panel. Yeah? Do you want to come back on that, Andy?
Just very briefly to say, one of the reasons why these conversations are helpful to us is because obviously we can take that those points and those learning and we'll feed that in via Claire's transformation lead contribution into the economy and infrastructure services that should, I guess, lead to a better outcome ultimately.
We move then to placements. You've got at the top of page 15, you've got a paragraph there that says discovery work concluded that an external review would not be beneficial at this time. Who did that discovery work and why was an external review not beneficial? Well, why I'm asking is I would not want the organisation to be sort of in organisational denial and for that discovery work to be robust as to the decision on the external review.
I did the discovery work and made that recommendation. At this point, based on one of the biggest gaps that we've got is intelligence. So I'm currently working with the intelligence team and with adult social care to map out what the intelligence gaps are, and that may result in us getting external support to look at that. And then once we've done that piece of work around the intelligence gaps, we're going to plan to revisit it.
So you haven't ruled out an external review at all? Okay. Anybody?
On page 13, on 2.2, I'd just like to ask you, what well, in the last sentence, the team recognises that it has a key role playing in Kirklees. What has been the key learning in your delivery from previous? Because this is nothing new that you're bringing to the table now. So in terms of delivery, what changes have you thought that you're going to be bringing in? What will change look like with this new service? And what good practice have you brought from other areas that we're going to be able to see in the actual delivery of this new transformation team?
Okay, thank you. So we had a very strong focus on, I guess, structured approaches to managing projects and programs in the first year to 2 years, well, 18 months, I guess it would be for the transformation program, which was very much how do we organise projects, how do we produce plans, how do we demonstrate that what impact has been had on the budget for the authority. So there was a lot of, I guess, administrative, structured approach to management of that type of work, as opposed to how do you provide challenge to officers in their understanding of the problems that they're trying to solve, how have they connected with partners and counsellors in understanding the reality of those issues, and then how have they started to work with colleagues, for example, in organisational change, organisation design activities, in working with the workforce to go through changes in services. So quite a distinction, I guess, between organising type of work, as opposed to really trying to get to the nub of what the problems are and challenge and support senior officers in particular in that type of activity. So we've moved from more project managers into more of the transformation lead type of role, which is thinking through what is systemic change and what does that lead to in terms of a very broad range of options for solutions that could be considered and prototyped for implementation.
From your response, it's like you don't really give me that confidence to believe in what you're saying. Like, you know, we are going to be dealing with the real issues with communities. Now, if you look at the report, there's a number of changes that you've identified that we will be seeing. I mean, I know we've picked up on waste as one of them. But how can you convince me that that change is going to be real and we're going to be seeing real solutions when you're still like trying to train your staff or mentally allow them to look at a different way of working? Because, you know, we're forever doing that. It's like, when are we going to actually see the delivery on the ground?
I think it's a good challenge to make, and again, it's difficult to articulate what success would be for you versus what success would be, for anyone else. I think one things that I think is the biggest lesson we've taken from the way we worked before is, if you get somebody who's working within a service area and they work in that service area day in, day out, and they provide programme management and support, the chances are that their ability to put some genuine challenge in gets diluted because they are working in a way that ends up with them being part of the service. This new approach is essentially where we say, this is a commission that's come in that somebody wants within the council. The team then determine who's got the best skills to do it. So it's not based on an individual relationship, it's based on a genuine skill. So if something needs, business analysis, we've got people who say, oh, I've got that skill. And actually what they will be able to do is to say, I'm looking at this with fresh eyes and I'm putting a challenge in there. And that is genuinely about cross-council working, and it takes it out of it being people aligned with a service that end up, in some cases, doing what the service wants and doesn't create that real change. Now, it's hard to say at this point when that will translate into something that you will see on the ground, but certainly from my perspective, if we're not looking at the impact that we're having, then it's not been a successful approach. So all of this will be done with a, so what then? What difference has that made? So it's a bit of assurance, but I don't think we're at the stage to say yet when we will see that happening.
Can I just ask about the mapping? Because everything seems to start with mapping. Do you start with what outcomes you're looking for people at the end of the processes and work backwards? Because sometimes when I've seen mapping of things, you think, well, it's been done on data or information that's held. And when you look at it, you think that doesn't reflect necessarily what is actually happening on the ground. And what the communities require, yes. So which way around are you looking at? Is it this is what we want to do, this is what we're going to map this and then we'll move on? Or is it, this is what we would like to be happening and how do we achieve that?
I think it's a really good question. Sometimes what we end up starting with is someone saying, I want a database that will do this for me. Or someone that says, I want to be able to reduce my service budget, or I want to be able to, I can't think of a third example. Partly that, what difference are you trying to make for whom question, or what outcome are you trying to achieve, is about saying your starting point should never be that. That might be the end point in terms of a service change or an IT system, but it's never the starting point. Partly, I think the transformation team's role is to put that, well, what is it you're actually trying to achieve? And I think the mapping is shorthand for saying, let's have a look at what difference you're trying to make and let's see what needs to happen, which is why some of the waste stuff's been quite interesting, because it started as we need some kind of digital solution to street cleansing, and it became well, hang on a minute, you can't look at that in isolation. Let's think about it more broadly. And sometimes that will mean that we don't move as quick on certain things, because solving one bit of the puzzle won't create the whole picture. So, and I take your point entirely about intelligence. I think we have been Population intelligence has not been bad across the district, and we've got a good set of an understanding of our population at that level. But what we don't necessarily have is what that means in terms of people on the ground and what they feel and think and care about that will help us shift the solutions into that direction of travel. So I entirely agree with you about the intelligence point. It's definitely an area we need to work on.
Can we ask about the high needs work then as well? So this is a little bit further on down the road, I think, by your report. And when it says key stakeholders and service users, so presumably there's been a lot of engagement happened with this. And Tom is going to be taking this forward. Obviously, this is a key area because if people are waiting for help, it's a few weeks is a long time for a young person, isn't it, in education? The Children's Scrutiny Panel, I think, would need to look at this in detail. Yes. So I'm sure Councillor Matchington, if he was here, would be saying that, all right, because it is the SEN is key, isn't it? Right, okay. So your Appendix A, this is what you can offer. Yes. The trouble is, it looks a little bit complicated. I absolutely can see where all the analysis skills in this are. So, problem definition, scoping definition and planning and things like this. But it's how do people know that what they are wanting to do would come under this transformation team offer? Because this looks very complicated in itself. So how are you engaging with services to say this is what we can help with, and this is how we're driving through transformation? Because that looks a bit complicated.
Okay, thank you. So there's clearly regular conversations that are had with service leadership teams, service management teams that talk about where we are providing a contribution or the sorts of support and challenge that we can provide. And yes, I mean, what we've tried to do is clearly this is a couple of slides. So we've tried to capture it in a way which tackles that challenge of how you get across a large amount of information in a small space. It doesn't always work, does it, via something like a slide in PowerPoint. Sometimes it's not until you get into that conversation that you can understand where the gaps are, the gaps in understanding within perhaps the services about the problems that they're trying to address, and we will use that conversation to identify the hooks for that type of input. There have been some service conversations where they would be more than happy to take control and ownership for the entirety of the problem until they get into a space where they are in receipt of some of these sorts of challenge skills. So it's through that sort of relationship and discussion primarily.
Is this potentially also leading to continuing silo working, really, in that if you're working just within your service and looking at your service in particular, and you're not looking outward and across the council, that in actual fact good practice from other areas, or are there other areas that could come in and look at this for you? Are you looking, where's the research looking outwards to other, like we said with on the waste, with other councils, what they're doing? How are you going to prevent this from just being a service looking at a service?
So I'll start, but I think Claire wants to add as well. One of the reasons why my role was created in the first place was to ensure that doesn't happen. So to ensure that there is join up across corporate services such as intelligence and performance and strategic communications and IT as well, all of whom are in my area. When we assign somebody to have that initial conversation with the service, so somebody from Claire's team, then their start point is to think about all of those range of contributions and beyond. There may be a financial input as well. So we're looking for those those places where we should be joining up and bringing in the right team of people. So it wouldn't always be that it's purely a transformation team input into a project. You may say, well, we need somebody from public health to work with us on this, or somebody from finance, or somebody from legal, etc., etc. So it's absolutely driven by making sure that the collaborative approach is there, rather than perpetuating or promoting any silo working. But I don't know whether Claire wants to add anything.
Anybody have any other more questions? No. So, high needs, we've said, children's panel, placements, the adults panel, waste economy and neighbourhoods. Okay. And yes, a 6-month update to management committee. Yeah, everybody okay with that? Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. Item 8 then. Let's have a bank of this. This is a request to establish an ad hoc scrutiny panel. To look at the most appropriate future arrangements for the council's residential housing stock. The proposal is to develop an ad hoc to carry out a focused piece of work, identifying the best options to achieve the right balance of risk to the council and the outcomes for local residents in relation to the housing stock for which the council is the landlord. This will be a particular piece of work that will be carried out as proposed between November and March. And I'm proposing that the ad hoc is set up and that it's done on a 1-1-1-1 approach to membership, to suspend political balance and do it on a 1-1-1-1. Is everybody okay with the establishment of the ad hoc and the approach to membership of the ad hoc? Yeah. The draft terms of reference has been tabled here today, and these are the terms of reference that are suggested at this moment in time that have been put together. There's just one thing that I was possibly wanted to look at as well, would be the links to the health and well-being and economy strategies as well in relation to this. But has anybody got any comments on the terms of reference, Andrew?
I just wonder, looking at this, whether we also ought to be looking at the governance of the different models, because we're talking about the risks and the benefits, but obviously the governance of any new arrangements may be different. They may have more or less involvement of tenants, more or less involvement of third-party organisations, independents, councillors, and so it'd be interesting to see what include governance as one of those bullet points that we look at.
Yeah, we can put that in. Yeah. So the proposed timeline is to ask for members of the panel. It'll go out to business managers as usual. The week beginning the 18th of November to have an informal planning meeting, and then for the actual scrutiny to start the week beginning the 16th of December. And in the meantime, we'll be doing quite a bit of research into the different models and etc. that is being used. Is everybody okay with that then? Yeah? Okay, thank you. Update on elective home education ad hoc scrutiny panel. This is the update that we asked for. Unfortunately, Councillor Mochkin isn't here yet. Is there anything, Penny, that we need to be aware of?
The panel membership has changed during the course of this piece of work, as has the legislation. So what the panel has most recently done is to get themselves up to date, because what has come through in terms of the guidance are some of the areas that the panel was keen to see in place anyway. They have identified a few final things that they want to do, which is under section 5, next steps, predominantly about hearing the voice of the child, but also understanding from local head teachers what the issues were from their point of view. there's a particular issue around removing from role that is very pertinent to this discussion. So they just want to do those last bits of work, hopefully by the end of the year, and then be able to bring forward up-to-date, meaningful recommendations within end of this year, not the municipal year, this calendar year. Yeah.
Okay, so we'd asked for an update because the ad hoc has been going for a little while now.
Yeah.
So with the new lines of inquiry that they're now proposing, I'm wondering if we could suggest to them that the final report be back to ourselves by March. So we have some time for them to do those final lines of inquiry. Yeah. Is that everybody okay with that? All right. LGA Corporate Peer Challenge. Rachel, do you want to come in on this one then?
Kate Nicholas will be joining us about 1:45.
It's fine, I can cover that if it's all right. Okay, so hopefully you've had a chance to read the report. The report gives you a bit of a background in terms of the process that we've undergone, in terms of the peer challenge that took place between the 9th and 12th of July. It also identifies in 2.3 the 5 questions that the peer challenge team would use in, well, I say questions, the more components that they would try and explore when they do peer challenges across the country. And that is how the LGA believe the councils are best assessed in relation to performance and improvement. We asked the peer team, because you can ask them to focus in specific areas, we asked them to kind of give us a bit of a reflection of whether our direction of travel was the right one and whether we are clear enough in terms of our priorities and where we want to aim for. We had some very positive feedback in relation to key strengths, and I think based on the conversation we had earlier, I think this is indicative of that, how we have very strong communities in Kirklees with strong identities, real positive sense of how committed and dedicated our staff were, which was really, really nice to hear, and how we're moving towards making some big investments, particularly things like the Huddersfield Master Plan. There was also a set of key recommendations which will be going to Council and Cabinet next week, and the action plan associated with that will be part of that report, and that will hopefully form an addendum to the corporate plan, so it's seen as a key way of us delivering against that corporate plan ambitions. I wasn't intending to say any more unless there's any specific questions on this.
Is there any questions on the report at item 10?
Are we still in public session?
Yeah,
Yes.
just on the report. That's why I said item 10.
Oh, item 10, not actually the report itself. To a certain extent, I wish we could talk about the report and the contents of the report, because there's some interesting stuff here. I guess we paid for it as a council. And I thought it had been released because we had a press release saying what a great report we've had. So I thought, on the basis that we've had a press release saying what a great report we've had, that it would be public. But apparently it's not, which has come as a bit of a surprise to me, to be quite honest. Because if we're going to say what a great report we had, it's really strange not to actually be able to show people the report, which is so great. Actually reading it, it's all right in parts. Some of it is not so great. So, any comment on why that has been? Why that? I mean, I could talk about the report, but maybe you don't want me to.
The report will be public from this evening, and I know we have an informal session to discuss the report in more detail and the action plan.
Okay. Can I ask about the presentation to Cabinet and to Council? So what is it that Cabinet are going to be asked to look at, and what will be Council be asked to look at?
Cabinet will be asked to look at the recommendations in the report and a subsequent action plan, and that will then will be recommended to Council.
The council will see sight of the action plan. And where is the decision? Excuse me, where is the decision on the actual action plan? Is that a decision for Cabinet or is that a decision for Council as well as Cabinet?
I've just come back from leave actually, and I'm not entirely sure what we finalised with this. It's being discussed at Cabinet briefing this afternoon, and the papers for Cabinet and full Council are being finalised today. Kate's going to come down after, so we'll get more clarity in the informal session.
So at 2.8, you say that the report, the progress against it will be reported on a quarterly basis. So my question then is, who gets those reports? Because if it's going to Council for discussion on the action plan, and it's going to Cabinet for discussion on the action plan, then my question is, will the updates be regular to Cabinet, or will there be an update to Council as well for discussion?
I'm sorry, it's not for want of wanting to. I think it will depend on what ends up being that goes to Council and then goes to Cabinet and then goes to Council.
So I think, go on, Andrew. I think discussion at Council, then Council should have updates on the progress of the action plan. Yes, yeah. Everybody wants to come in.
I just wanted to know, is the action plan going to be a public document as well? And who's going to be monitoring it and feeding back? And like Liz has said, you know, will full Council be getting the updates, or will it be coming to scrutiny?
Certainly the action plan will be accompanying the papers that go to full Council and to Cabinet next week. So it will be a public document. In terms of monitoring, we just need to confirm that in terms of the ownership of that plan in relation to Cabinet versus Council.
And we'd want it back to scrutiny at an interval that we can discuss. Okay, an interval that we can discuss. Is everybody okay with that? We would like, if the action plan is being discussed at Council, we would like Council to get updated as well as Cabinet. Yes? Okay. We'll leave that one with you because we realise you can't answer it at this moment in time. Agenda item 11 then, which is the agenda plan. We have a meeting in the diary for the 2nd of December. The cohesion strategy that was due to come on the 2nd of December, they would like to come to the January meeting instead. So I was wondering if members would prefer for the regional update to move into January as well, and so that we didn't have the 2nd of December meeting. Would that make it, because that cohesion strategy can't come until January, do we think that that would make it easier for members of the committee? Yes. The 13th of January Equality and Diversity update, that will go to the corporate panel now instead of coming to the management committee. And we also need to put a crime disorder, agree a focus of update for the crime disorder. Now, if the cohesion strategy is coming to the January, then we will need to have a discussion on whether we would like anything on crime and disorder at the same meeting, because it would be the same officers who would be coming for both. All right. We've said the ad hoc final report in March, and a Democracy Commission working group, we will check whether we can get that into January or whether we need to move it into March. All right. Councillor Paul.
Sorry, Councillor Major, I realise I probably missed most of the meeting now, and my train was cancelled and then they sent me to Staley Bridge and then I've just got back here. But I just wanted to ask about, I don't know if you got to the K&H ad hoc committee, you'd already discussed that. So can I just ask what was agreed?
The future arrangement was the council's residential housing stock ad hoc. That we've agreed to the ad hoc. The terms of reference have been tabled, and we're going to add something about governance of models as well. And we will do it on a 1-1-1-1 basis. So we'll suspend political balance and do it on a 1-1-1-1 basis as well. And the time frame will be between November and March. So if councillors are appointed to that ad hoc, they will need to be available for the meetings between the 16th of December and the 24th of March. No, business managers will be asked to build it. Penny, do you want to come in?
So basically, any councillor that isn't on the cabinet can be a member of a scrutiny ad hoc panel. So we'll go to business managers, probably copy in the leader of groups and see what the nominations are.
Yeah, that really helps. We had it on our agenda, so that would come off now. Okay.
I think there was a bit of discussion about what the focus was on economy and neighbourhoods, and it was more the operation, the day-to-day, if they've got performance measures and this sort of thing, that was still appropriate. But I think there's recent discussions, so your support officer will be able to update you on those. Okay.
Yeah. This is not an ad hoc into the day-to-day operations. This is, yeah. So there's the difference, yeah.
I mean, ours wasn't just about that. They did want to look at the relationship of K&H, which is obviously very similar now to this ad hoc. Yeah, okay.
Right. All right, so is there anything else on the work plan then? No? So we'll draw the public meeting to a close then now. Thank you.